So what can we do about it? I think that it starts with an understanding, like how does an alcoholic deal with his drinking problem? First, he needs to recognize he's an alcoholic. How does a simp deal with his simping? He needs to recognize that he's a simp. In this video, we're gonna have a conversation about some simping that's really on a biblical level these days. This is not something that a lot of people want to talk about. Most people are going to try to ignore it. The guys themselves that are being taken advantage of anyway will choose to ignore it or just look away and just kind of carry on in their lives. And then there's a demographic of women that are also laughing at these guys that are being taken advantage of. So in this video, I'm going to explain why this happens, how it happens, and what we can do about it going forward. Before we begin, I hope you enjoy the change of scenery. There's no point in driving around because we're on coronavirus lockdown. So I thought I'd just move it over the couch and give you guys something different to look at in the background. But here's the thing, guys. I've done loads and loads of consults with men over the years. Last night we had our regular Q&A session in my men's communities. You know, sometimes it ends up talking about business, investing, entrepreneurship. Sometimes it gets into locker room chat. And one of the dynamics that came out of that conversation was a situation where this guy who was essentially the alpha seed part of the equation was sharing a story on this woman who is in her early 20s that managed to acquire close to $200,000 USD from men that she was taking advantage of. To kind of frame a little bit better, because some of you might be newer to the concept of alpha seed and beta need. Alpha seed is basically the Chad, the Tyrone, the tall, strong, chiseled sort of cheekbones, wide shoulders, narrow waist. You know, he's like the alpha Chad guy that easily gets women. He doesn't really have to try hard. And the guy that was sharing the story was the alpha C part of the equation in this woman's life. There's also another demographic of men that women also rely on, which is called the beta need segment. And these women basically look to these guys because they've got access to resources, or maybe they're the good enough guy that they may want to settle down with later on in life and have their 2.1 kids with. So there's some shifting dynamics in that. I'm not going to make that about the entire video, but just for simplicity's sake, this guy was the alpha seed of the equation. Now, a lot of the times, you know, these women that are early in their 20s, they laugh at these men, the beta seed guys that they can take advantage of, and they like to sing like a canary, and they'll tell these stories to these guys. She was one of a few women that this guy was dating, the alpha, and they were having a conversation about this, and she was spilling the beans on everything. And I'm not really sure why, well, I can tell you why, actually. It's not that I'm not really sure, it's just that I am sure. They like to brag about it. And, you know, it's a function of where we are today. That's why they use things like Instagram. You can tell that she was the kind of person that liked to brag about it, because on her Instagram, she would virtue signal to the world about how she was a successful real estate investor or a house flipper, with, you know, photographs in great events, travel, high-end nightclubs, dinner clubs, standing in front of nice German cars and stuff like that. But what she wasn't telling the world was that she got all of that, or access to all of that, because she was taking advantage of some beta need guys. Some very successful men that, again, they achieved mastery in their life. They had either become surgeons, accountants, doctors, lawyers, sort of thing. And through a function of the way society works today with the internet and the exchange of information, there's a lot of women out there with things like OnlyFans, dating apps, swiping apps, sugar dating apps, and they'll run these guys in rotation. And this woman was laughing at the storytelling that she was giving alpha seed over her beta need guys. She was abusing the beta need guys. They were calling her, pining for her attention and for her to come back, and she was treating them quite badly. I'm not going to get into exactly what happened, but whatever you're thinking right now is bad, multiply that by about 20. It was even worse. So quite abusive. Like there was not even close to any kind of level of respect in the way she would treat these guys. In their work life, maybe in their plastic surgery clinic, in their law firm, in their accounting firm, they were top shelf men and respected amongst their peers. But somehow a young, early 20-something woman managed to extract close to $200,000 from all these guys. And this is more common than you think. This is not an uncommon thing. It happens quite a lot. Most of it's swept under the rug because at the end of the day, both parties kind of get what they want. The guy gets what he wants, and she kind of gets what she wants. The only difference is there's one laughing at the other, and the other one is pining for the other one's attention at the end of the day because they don't understand the way the dynamic works and how they're being abused. So that's why it happens, and that's how it happens. Now, I think that there's probably some guys watching this right now that might think, oh crap, that's me. And that's fine. But there's probably also guys out there that aren't watching this that need to see this video, and you need to share this video with them so they can get their head wrapped around exactly what it is that's going on and how they're treated in that equation, what the part of that equation is. Now, here's the worst part of all of it as I see it anyway. You know, some guys will say, you know, well, the worst part of it was how she would treat these guys or how she would abuse them or treat them and abuse them / you know, all those reasons in there. But I see another problem with it as well, a higher level political, economical, or economic type of problem with it. And it's essentially, most of these highly successful guys, you know, they've achieved mastery. They've done the work. They got their degrees. They're making $250,000, $500,000 a year, maybe more. They're probably in the top 1%, if not the top 5 to 10% of income earners in North America. And there's a lot of guys like this. Most people don't realize when you see this like list of highly successful billionaires online or published every year, and you see a few women on it, you're like, oh, that's great. You know, there's some women on it. But for the most part, most of those women acquired their wealth either through a function of divorce. Like Mackenzie Bezos, for example, she's one of the richest women in the world. Half of that came from Jeff Bezos and as a function through Amazon. You can argue about whether she was entitled to it or not, but that's where the money came from. So it's usually coming from inheritance, divorce, or something like that. So at the end of the day, all the money that these highly successful guys are making, that they're paying taxes on, depending on where they live, the tax bracket, I mean, here anyway, it can be as high as somewhere to 60 to 70% all inclusive with all the taxes you're going to pay as you use the money. So you're earning the money, you're paying high tax rates on it, and then whatever you have left in cash reserves, these guys are throwing at these women. And I'll be honest with you, not particularly attractive. We took a look at the Instagram feed last night on this, and I'm going to say like a 5 or a 6 with no makeup, maybe a 6 or a 7 with hair and makeup done. So not even a top shelf woman, like kind of basic if I'm being honest, but laughing at these guys that she was taking advantage of. So again, the problem with the tax issues, as well, the economic issues of it is these guys are paying tax on the income that they're making, and they give it away to this girl and she's got 200 grand. Do you think she's declaring that income on her tax return? Or do you think it's tax-free? The answer is it's tax-free. And it's a problem from that one perspective, but the other component of that is also problematic is there's a lot of these younger women out there that have these attitudes of entitlement. You know, it's all about me. There's a toxic feminist agenda that's almost like a supremacist movement these days that is quite hostile towards men. And then they vote for programs and policies that support more free stuff for them. Unlimited medical care, unlimited abortions, unlimited this, that, and the other thing. So they'll be part of the Yang Gang, the Bernie crowd, the socialist movement. So not only are they getting free money from rich, successful guys that have done the work, that have got the degrees, that are making bank, they're extracting the wealth from them, laughing at them, not paying taxes on it, and then voting for policies that enforce more garbage on these highly successful men. So what can we do about it? I think that it starts with an understanding, like how does an alcoholic deal with his drinking problem? First, he needs to recognize he's an alcoholic. How does a simp deal with his simping? He needs to recognize that he's a simp. So the first step is, if you're watching this, recognize this bad behavior going on, and you have to start making some independent choices in your belief system that get you some better results. There's probably guys that need to see this that aren't watching it, that you should probably share it with. Do that, please, because that might enlighten them. But call it out when you see it, guys. When you see guys being treated poorly or being taken advantage of, call it out. Just point to it. Say, hey, kind of notice this. Just want to say this is in your blind spot and you might be ignoring it. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of really smart guys out there, and they've done well in life. They've achieved mastery in, their area of life. Maybe they're great eye surgeons or plastic surgeons or whatever, lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, like professionals that are making bank. They're putting dent in the universe. They're on a purpose, but they suck with women. And they allow these young, adolescent, abusive, entitled 5s and 6s take advantage of them. And they let it happen. They wouldn't let their You know, if they got into a frivolous legal battle, they wouldn't let that, you know, just kind of go away or just let them walk all over them. They wouldn't let that happen. But to let some young thing that gave them attention on a dating app or a sugar site or an OnlyFans or something like that, these guys are smart. They're smarter than that, but they don't understand sexual marketplace. Here's the thing. Here's how you fix it. Chase excellence in all areas of your life, not just one. A lot of these guys are betas. You know, they're the beta need part of the equation. The guy that was part of that conversation, that's part of the alpha seed part of the equation, he's working at becoming 1% in everywhere in his life, in all areas in his life, in looks, competency, skills, making bank. You know, there's a whole bunch of things that you can kind of go down the list with, right? But it's not just, you know, being successful in his career placement. He's building success in all areas of his life. And I think that when guys get their head around understanding that and they chase excellence in more than just one area or two areas of their life, and they kind of broaden the scope of their understanding of the way the world works, and they choose to unplug from the comforting lies and subscribe more to some uncomfortable truths that may not be particularly fun to accept, but they'll get them far better results. It's, you know, it's that unplugging mechanism that is going to get them where they need to be and stop the ridiculousness of this biblical simping that's going on today. It has achieved levels that, I mean, who knows if this happened 1,000, 2,000 years ago. I'm sure there was some version of that back then, but today it's on levels that are unheard of simply because we all, I don't have my phone, but, you know, I pick up my phone, but we all have these handheld devices where they are essentially, for women, it's an easy way to get attention from a lot of guys. And if they want to subdivide the guys into the two alpha seed and beta need categories and mistreat the beta need guys while they pine for their attention, and then go and do the naughty stuff with the alpha seed and then come back and flip back and forth. And guys, these early 20-somethings that are doing this right now, that are, you know, running themselves through the carousel, that are racking up a huge notch count, at some point when they hit the epiphany phase in their late 20s, maybe when they're 30, they're going to wise up and be like, that was dumb. I burned through my youth. I burned through my looks. Now I have to find a guy to wife me up after I've got this track record. And then she's obviously going to lie to him. She's not going to be honest about what she was doing or how she acquired $200,000 when she was 23 years old, talking about being a real estate investor. Okay. You know, there's a lot of guys that create these avatars for, you know, the Karens of the world, the sun hat goddess. You know, Karen took the kids. She's in her late 30s. She's got half the house and half the money and all that sort of thing. And she's the kind that wants to talk to the manager at the store. You know, they create avatars, but this is like the Nicole avatar. And these are the early 20s, abusing guys, laughing at them. They're milking multiple guys while playing multiple alphas at the same time and laughing about it the whole way to the bank until they realize at some point that, oh crap, I'm 30, I'm single, I don't have the looks that I did when I was 23, they're deteriorating quickly, I'm running out of, you know, eggs, and I should probably settle down and get wifed up. And that leaves a incredibly precarious predicament for her at a later date. And the guys that were taken advantage of, well, they're out all that money and time subscribing to beliefs that didn't serve them, placating Nicole.
All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.